once it says live. So it does. Now on here it says live. Let me go ahead and make sure if I'm sharing it on Facebook that we're going to go ahead and set that to public, just so people can comment and stuff like that if they're joining us on the old FB. So give it another 5-10 seconds and then we'll start, baby. Now on here. Yep. Oh, I think I heard myself.
Yeah.
Sick. Oh, I sound good. Just kidding. All right. Here's the pause. Welcome to another episode of The Go Route here on Fantasy Focus, brought to you by the Original Hooters. I'm Derek Tate alongside Jay Pfeiffer. And Jay, we had a bye week last week.
Yep.
And the Chicago Bears were coming off a bye week of their own, but we have some top takeaways from week 7. But how are things going over there in the Chi?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. You know, it's definitely making a transition to fall weather here in Chicago. Yeah. I'm sure you know about that too, being where you're at, but it's not bad. But we've got some football to talk about, that's for sure. Got to catch up a little bit. Like you said, we were on our bye week. Let's just call it that. And let's get into this thing, man. It's good to see you, brother.
Yeah, so speaking of bye weeks, the Chicago Bears were coming off of a bye in week 6, off of prior a week 5 loss to the Oakland Raiders over in London. So you kind of expected that Matt Nagy and the rest of the Bears organization getting Mitchell Trubisky back. You have a lot of time to prepare for a New Orleans Saints team that has been playing lights out ever since they lost Drew Brees. Instead, with Teddy Bridgewater still under center at home at Soldier Field, it looked like the Chicago Bears were on yet another bye week because they came out and got punched in the mouth, and it stayed that way through the entirety of this one as the Bears. This is one of the most deceiving final scores that you'll ever see.
Yeah, it wasn't that close.
36-25, but they recovered 2 late onside kicks to make it even somewhat respectable as far as the final score goes. But the floor is yours. What the hell is going on with the Chicago Bears?
I mean, your guess is as good as mine, Derek. It's very troubling. It's 2 losses in a row now. And you can somewhat forgive the London loss to the Raiders, okay? You take that one for what it is, all right? They got pounded on the ground. Josh Jacobs had a great day. The injury to Akeem Hicks, it's seemingly now becoming a greater issue than maybe it even was, just a week ago. He's on IR now, going to be back hopefully maybe week 14. I believe that's the earliest he can come back. And Akeem Hicks is a guy that the Bears sorely missed. That was evident again last week against the Saints. They just did whatever they wanted. The really troubling part about that game last week was that the Bears only had 87 yards after 3 quarters. There's absolutely no excuse for the lack of creativity on offense, given the pieces that they have. This goes beyond the quarterback. All right, Derek, let's just start there. Okay. The Bears have some real issues, and let's face it, to me, the bright light is right on Coach Matt Nagy. Okay. The hire was, I don't want to say questionable, before the start of last year, but the hire was one of those where he said, okay, well, it looks like the Bears are in the midst of this new trend, trying to find an offensive-minded young guy, a quote-unquote quarterback whisperer guy that is up and coming, and that's going to change the game with how he approaches it, right?
Right.
And last year, I think what you saw was the Bears catching a lot of teams by surprise, right? That is certainly not the case this year, okay? They look predictable on offense. The defense is uninspired at this point. I believe they're probably on the verge of a revolt, I think, behind the locker room. Nobody really says anything about that. And it's certainly something that we have to keep an eye on as Bears fans and as football fans in general. But this starts with Matt Nagy. There is no creativity. He doesn't seem to inspire the players anymore. The offense, again, I said it looks predictable. They have completely abandoned the run game, right?
Right.
Completely abandoned it. David Montgomery is a stud. I think me and you both agree on that. I think we talked about this, even before we started this podcast leading up to the draft. Listen, we thought David Montgomery might be one of the steals of the draft coming out of Iowa State. He doesn't seem to know how to use him whatsoever, Derek. And one glaring difference that I'm also seeing from the offense is where in the hell are the RPOs? I'm no genius, and a coach whatsoever. If I was, I'd be coaching this day, right? But if you tell me you've got Tariq Cohen, David Montgomery, and Mitchell Trubisky, a guy who can run for a quarterback. If you got that as a backfield and you're running RPOs, that's one way to loosen up a defense. I mean, am I wrong in saying something like that? I mean,
no, absolutely not.
So let's start with the play. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the play calling, right? And again, it's the defenses know whatever's coming at every play. They key on it, and Matt Nagy doesn't know how to adjust game to game, play to play. And it seems as though he's trying to impose his will instead of adjusting to how teams are playing him. And it's alarming because, again, it's only two. I say it's only 2 losses in a row. It's 2 losses in a row, but they can come out next week and win, and they can still be 4-3, right? And still be right in the race of things. But it's alarming the way the team is playing right now. And I don't know if there's an easy fix for it or a quick one for that matter.
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to the Bears in a snapshot right now, last week or in week 5 against the Raiders, we saw Chase Daniel under center, right? And I mentioned that I know that he had that horrible interception when they had the opportunity to potentially come back and win that football game, or at least tie it up or at least take the lead on the last drive, and he threw an awful interception that was nowhere in the same zip code as Anthony Miller. Like, I understand that. And I know that he threw an interception earlier in the game as well. That kind of helped the Raiders get out to a big lead. But I really liked what I saw from Chase Daniel bringing them back. And it was really the defense that let them down at the very tail end of that game, giving up that touchdown to Josh Jacobs on the ground that sealed their fate. But this game was completely different. You have Mitchell Trubisky, who is wearing a sling on his left arm, right?
Right.
And what the hell is he doing throwing the ball 54 times?
Well,
if he's not 100%, why are you throwing the ball that many times? And not to mention this, but I am going to mention it. Anthony Miller saw as many carries in the first half as David Montgomery did.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah.
One carry for David Montgomery, who is a workhorse of a back.
Yes.
But granted, he did lose the carry early in the third quarter.
Big fumble there. Big fumble.
It was, but I mean, he's not a fumbler. I'm not concerned about it.
I'm not. You know, that to me that was a non-factor. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that as far as what I'm seeing is there is a complete lack of trying to establish anything on the ground. Now, granted, I understand that the offensive line itself is having issues. I know that Kyle Long just got put on IR. I understand that they're trying to figure things out along that offensive line because they've had issues even when Kyle Long was in the lineup. So, I mean, it's certainly hasn't been easy on no matter who's been under center this year for Chicago as far as protection goes. But I'm not making excuses for Mitchell Trubisky because far too often he is just missing open throws. He's hesitating and holding on to the football. There's just this offense has no identity right now. And once you establish that you have no identity on offense whatsoever and a quarterback that can't seem to get out of his own way right now, then you see the defense who really misses Akeem Hicks, because one of the things that made this defense elite was the fact that they could just shut you down running the football. And right now, 2 consecutive games, we've seen running backs that I believe are I'm not going to say that Josh Jacobs is a scrub or anything like that, but I think the middle-of-the-road running back Latavius Murray isn't a top 25 running back in the NFL, yet he carved up this defense. Both of them were able to just do whatever they wanted against this defensive front, and that is majorly concerning because if you can't sustain drives, keep that elite defense off the field a little bit, then they're just going to get worn down and eventually start to break down across the board.
And that's what you saw these past 2 games, especially, Derek. The Bears are giving up over 400 yards a game these past 2 games. And again, the issues are up front. They miss Akeem Hicks. They're not plugging the gaps the way they did with him there. They're trying to find a guy that can come in and fill in the role, but you just can't, right? I mean, Akeem Hicks is a Pro Bowl caliber defensive tackle. So, I mean, what do you do there? Do you start to blitz more? I don't know if we'll start to see that adjustment from Chuck Pagano. That's something we can also keep an eye on. But listen, there are issues on both sides of the ball. Kyle Fuller. I mean, Michael Thomas is Michael Thomas. We get that. I mean, he's probably right now the best wide receiver in the NFL. But man, I don't know if it's scheme, Derek. I mean, I I saw some things looking back at the game highlights where they were already giving Michael Thomas a cushion, so that's probably scheme. But I mean, geez, Kyle Fuller, you gotta stick to him at least a little bit better than some of those plays that we saw him, because again, he's a stud, but you're supposed to be a stud as well, and we're not seeing very good play from Kyle Fuller at the cornerback spot either.
Yeah, I mean, it's across the board right now. I mean, you can't, as much as I want to throw almost all the blame on Mitchell Trubisky, I can't do that because my eyes are telling me that there's issues across the board, whether it be play calling, whether it be on the offensive line, on the back end defensively. They gave up a couple big plays, one of which to Ted Ginn Jr. And there was on multiple occasions, Teddy Bridgewater could have sat back there and done his taxes. He had so much time that he was sitting back there trying to decipher where to go with the football.
He ended up being, I believe that was a deep route to Michael Thomas, I think, set up a touchdown on that drive. I know exactly what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about a team, like I said, I hate to beat the dead horse about it, but there's a lack of just innovation across the board, especially on offense. I mean, what you saw last year, I mean, you just left you salivating coming into this year, and the regression is obvious. And I hear the talk of, well, they're dumbing down the playbook. Well, maybe they should stop dumbing down the playbook. I mean, maybe
why are you dumbing down the playbook with a quarterback that's in his second year in this offense?
Exactly, and who showed success in it last year in the first year. So I just wonder exactly what the issues are offensively. They should be playing better than what they are, and he just. Again, we don't want to throw it all on Trubisky because at this point, it's not all his fault. Like you said, Derek, he can't be throwing the ball 54 times. There has to be a balance there. And when you run the ball, it can't be east and west either. It's got to be some north and south type of stuff. Or again, let's start to see some RPOs. Trubisky's an athlete. Cohen's an athlete. Montgomery's an athlete. You telling me there's not things that you can do there to loosen up a defense a little bit, just to not key on a passing play all the time? I mean, with the 3 and 5 step drop, no wonder why the balls are getting batted down and Trubisky is struggling even to make intermediate throws, and why listen again. This goes back to the offensive line, because when you're calling pass plays all the time, the defense is going to rear its head back and just bull rush it all the time. Again, it's not all on Trubisky.
Oh, yeah.
The scheme has a lot to do with it, and that goes back to the coaching.
It makes it harder to push the ball down the field too, because if you have no run game to speak of and you're completely one-dimensional, those linebackers you're not pulling any of them up with play action of any sort. You can't get windows behind them in front of the safeties to get even, intermediate looks. So basically you're either having to win one-on-one matchups on the outside. By the way, the only person that I liked and has shown up consistently the entire season on the offensive side of the football is Allen Robinson. He's worth absolutely every dollar that they paid him. Yep. And he looks 100% healthy from that knee injury he sustained back in 2017. So I'm glad to see him doing his thing, and he's succeeding in spite of the quarterback play, regardless of whoever's under center. But for me, the running game has to be much more involved, and you have to commit to it.
Yes.
Even if it's not working.
Yes.
You got to see more than 2 carries in a game for David Montgomery, more than 3 for Cohen. I mean, they have to have some sort of an identity running the football moving forward.
Agreed. And it's about, like you said, it's commitment is the word to it. You can't just have one play. Sure, not every running play is going to be 5 and 6 yards on the first play. Yeah, you're going to have some 1-yarders, some 2-yarders, and maybe some for no gain sometimes, but you have to stick with it. That's the only way this offense is going to grow. That's the only way it's going to succeed. That's the only way the team is going to succeed, because, again, we've been talking about a tired defense that's been on the field. I mean, I believe they were on the field 35 minutes last week. I believe, if not more. I'd have to go back and look at the stats, but I think they were on the field 35 minutes in that game, and that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. Of course, they're going to get run over in the second half, and that's what you saw in that game. But you know what? Let's flip it from the Bears, right? And let's talk about those Saints, if you don't mind. I mean, we're talking about
it all. Let's talk about it.
I mean, if you would have told me that the Saints were going to go 5-6-0 with Drew Brees on the sideline and Teddy Bridgewater leading your squad, no disrespect to Teddy Bridgewater, and listen, he might be a guy that, if things don't work out in Chicago, that the Bears may want to look at next season. I'm just saying. But if you would have told me that the team was going to go undefeated in Drew Brees' absence, I would have asked for what drugs you had and can I have some myself, right? I mean, the Saints, we're going to get in the power rankings, I'm sure, here in a little bit, but the Saints are really, really impressive although the Bears didn't do them any favors.
Well, for me, Sean Payton's up for at least one of the leading candidates for Coach of the Year.
Absolutely.
I mean, you saw not only, I mean, yeah, it's now 5-0 with Teddy Bridgewater under center as a starting quarterback for this team. And then you also take into account that Alvin Kamara didn't even play in this football game against the Chicago Bears, and yet they still dropped 36 points.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, they're playing. They're just playing at such a high level, and to me, that's the difference between a guy like Sean Payton, who I think that if you were to say who did you like more at the quarterback position heading into the 2019 season, Teddy Bridgewater or Mitchell Trubisky, most everybody would have taken Mitchell Trubisky at this point.
Sure.
And who would you take whose defense would you take heading into this year? Would you have taken Sean Payton and the Saints defense, or would you have taken what they have in Chicago this year? You would have taken Chicago in a landslide.
Absolutely.
Yet they came out and were completely ready to play football and had a plan and stuck to that plan. I mean, we saw Latavius Murray, 27 carries in this game.
Yep.
And Bridgewater, yeah, he threw the ball 38 times, but it was, again, because of all that time of possession, moving the chains. I mean, they certainly took their shots, and Michael Thomas 8 on today with 9 for 131. But for the most part, there was a lot of balance with this offense. They were hitting you in different ways, and you saw a commitment to the running game, even though early on, like Murray didn't pop any huge runs, but they kept the Bears defense honest, and it paid dividends towards the end of the game.
Yeah, and again, they came in, like you said, you hit all the big points on the head. They knew what they wanted to do with their game plan. They executed it to perfection. I mean, who would have thought Latavius Murray would come in and have such a dominant performance the way he did? Again, a former backup running back, very good. You know, a couple of seasons ago, was very serviceable, especially when he was in Minnesota.
Right.
But came in, had a world of a day. Again, that Bears front did not do them any favors.
Right.
But what you saw was a team that knew who they were, no matter the situation, knew what they wanted to do on both offense and defense, and came in and completely dominated the football game. I mean, coming into this game, I thought a big key was going to be the time of possession, but just who'd have thought the Saints would have just dominated that category so well? It was just a really, really impressive performance in a place that the Saints historically don't play well. But again, they came in and did a hell of a job.
And really the only thing that kept the game super competitive early on was a Cordero Patterson kickoff return.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen, then you mentioned already what the total stat line was yardage-wise heading, prior through the first 3 quarters of the football game. It was complete dominance on both sides by the New Orleans Saints. But, I mean, we mentioned the coaching. And another top takeaway that I have from week number 7 of NFL action is that Frank Reich is also somebody that needs to be up for NFL Coach of the Year with the Indianapolis Colts, who they continue to win football games in a multitude of ways. 30-23 over the Houston, mind you, a red-hot Houston Texans team that was riding high off of beating the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead. And here we are. The Colts are sitting atop the AFC South with a 4-2 record through the first 7 weeks of the NFL seasons. What are some of your takeaways from the Colts and how they beat up on the Texans?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was surprising. I definitely got that game wrong. I'll tell you that, Derek. I thought the Texans would come in there and, not dominate. I mean, it was a divisional matchup. I thought it would be sort of close. But I thought the Texans would go in there and sort of take care of business. Again, coming off that win in Kansas City. Deshaun Watson up to that point and still getting some MVP considerations. We'll get into that in a little bit as well.
Right.
But, didn't have the best game. Jacoby Brissett, I mean, listen, if you're talking about surprise storyline of the season, you got to start with Jacoby Brissett. I mean, a guy that was a backup, in New England, did get some time to learn the great Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, a guy that has been a career backup, but of course, with Andrew Luck retiring right before the season starts, he steps in. And the guy, what comes to mind when I watch him play is just steady and cool. I mean, he's unflappable. He doesn't let the moment get too much or too bad for him. He just goes out there and plays the game. And I think three throwing, and I think another on the ground touchdown wise for Jacoby Brissett. I mean, again, Frank Reich doing a hell of a job there. Marlon Mack, a stud running back that really nobody is really talking about a whole lot. but a guy that's having a great season so far. And that defense is playing great. They would still come back from the Texans, but because I guarantee you, if they would have had maybe another 5 or 6 minutes on that clock, I'm not sure Houston would have tied that game up. But again, a very big win for the Indianapolis Colts. And like you said, they're atop a very, very competitive AFC South.
Yeah, an AFC South that still has me guessing a little bit. And the Houston Texans, one week they look like they could be a contender to make it to the AFC Championship game to face off against the New England Patriots, who I assume will automatically be there. But then on the next week, they kind of lay an egg. I mean, they laid an egg against the Carolina Panthers. They laid an egg this week against the Indianapolis Colts. And I'm going to give the Colts credit because what has happened every single week of the NFL season is that Frank Reich has these guys ready to play.
Yes.
And you mentioned Marlon Mack, who didn't have a big stat line in this game. I mean, he was really bottled up for the most part. 18 carries, 44 yards. But we mentioned it with kind of prior with like Matt Nagy, and they make a concerted effort to run the football.
Right.
And 18 carries, even though it wasn't super effective, it helped his quarterback be a little bit more effective.
Exactly.
326 and 4 scores through the air. I mean, we saw things from T.Y. Hilton and Eric Ebron that we expect, but we saw Zach Pascal step up.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's something where this team, no matter what, it's a true testament to the coaching staff that they are 4-2 after getting really dealt a shocking blow in this preseason with no Andrew Luck.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy in Luck that I think we all probably had right atop our MVP preseason ballot.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, a guy coming off of the season that he had, just surprisingly retiring. I mean, listen, we still don't know the full extent of really what happened with Andrew Luck. Maybe he'll be back next year in a different uniform. But again, you talk about the mentality that Frank Reich has on his Indianapolis Colts team. It's truly a play-by-play, game-by-game basis. And he has those guys, like you said, they're ready to play every week. They've been competitive every week. They have not gotten blown out in any game that they've been in or that they've lost, and they've only lost 2. But They weren't blowouts. And they make a concerted effort to be balanced, to be a team that can be reckoned with, both running and passing the ball. And when you got Eric Ebron catching touchdowns like he did last week and T.Y. Hilton doing this thing, they're right up there in the AFC. And again, nobody's really talking about the Indianapolis Colts, and I think they like it that way.
Yeah, probably. And they're going to continue to be an under-the-radar team, whether they win the AFC South or not, because they don't have that flashy player right now.
No.
I mean, Marlon Mack, solid player. T.Y. Hilton, solid player. Jacoby Brissett seems like a game manager, but he's making plays, and he's making plays to win games, which is something that I didn't expect heading into the 2019 season. So they're definitely going to be a team to be reckoned with. And speaking of team to be reckoned with, my final top takeaway is the Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are a team that are still incredibly difficult to try to figure out on a week-to-week basis, strictly because they started off 3-0. Dak Prescott looks like an MVP candidate. And then last week, they finish off losing 3 straight to a winless New York Jets team where Sam Darnold carved up this defense. Dak didn't look like himself, and Zeke didn't look like himself. So, but this week at home, after Doug Peterson, the head coach of the Eagles, goes ahead and shoots his shot and decides, I'm going to go ahead and say, we're winning this damn football game. And then they fall behind 14-0 in the blink of an eye within the first 6 minutes of that football game, turning the ball over twice.
Yeah.
So what is to make, I mean, for the Philadelphia Eagles, we can talk about both teams, but was this more impressive for the Dallas Cowboys, or are you significantly concerned about the Philadelphia Eagles moving forward?
Well, I'll start off by saying this. I thought the Cowboys would win the game. I could not see them winning 4 in a row, even though I think maybe, I don't know about you, but I think maybe some people might have had Philly going on the road and winning that game. I just couldn't see Dallas losing 4 games in a row. I thought Zeke Elliott would have a bounce back game. He did, right? So I think that's one of the keys for that game and how it turned out. But man, Philadelphia, I don't think is who we thought they were, are they? They've really got some issues holding on to the football, especially this year. I think that's been one of the keys to why they've struggled. They can't hold on to the football. They're right up there at the leaders in turnovers as far as teams go in the league. And they like you said, they were down 14-0 in the blink of that eye. They were just basically playing catch up from there and just could not stop Zeke Elliott whatsoever. They've also got issues up front against stopping the run. One of their other issues this year.
Shocking, though. That's shocking. Normally, they're very good against the run, and this week they got torched against Zeke and company.
Yeah, very much so. And again, Zeke Elliott is one of the best in the league, if not arguably the best. So, it's a tough task, but they were getting run over. They did not establish the line of scrimmage at all, and Dallas dominated them. And Philly's got to go back to the drawing board a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if there was any team that I thought should have made an aggressive play for Jalen Ramsey, I thought it was Philadelphia because they've got a lot of issues on the back end as well as far as stopping opposing passing games. Right now, they're giving up the 7th most pass yards on defense in the NFL. So, I mean, they're right there among the league's worst, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Raiders, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as when we're taking a look at offensively, I mean, they didn't have Jason Peters for this game. Nope. We saw Quinn have a big game. We saw DeMarcus Lawrence finally show up.
Yep.
So Philadelphia, though, long-term, I'm much more concerned about them. I think Dallas has a very, very talented roster from top to bottom on both sides of the football. So, but for me, there's a lot more questions for Philly than there is for Dallas out of this one. But it was a complete dominant performance from Jason Garrett and the Dallas Cowboys. So are there any other top takeaways before we move on to handing out game balls for week 7?
Yeah, the Ravens. I mean, a big statement win on the road. I know Earl Thomas had some fun during that game. I mean, I don't know if you saw any of it, but I mean, he hit some jawing back and forth on the sidelines with some of his former teammates out there in Seattle and some of the personnel as well. Listen, we know how things ended in Seattle. He didn't.
Gave him the bird.
Yeah.
Bird off.
yeah, absolutely. So, again, that was real sweet for him. But for me, the Ravens going on the road and winning in one of the most difficult places to play in the entire league out there in Seattle. You saw Russell Wilson make his first crucial mistake of the year, basically, and it ended up kind of snowballing from there. But Lamar Jackson, I mean, we're going to talk about our MVPs, but man, oh man, that kid with that, I believe it was an 86-yard drive, I think, in the third quarter. I mean, highlight after highlight play. It really helped that seal. I can't remember the situation. I'm not sure if it was really kind of the sealer or I think it was the one to take the lead, I want to say. But that drive was a thing of beauty. And again, just continues to play at an amazing level, does Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna take what we think about our MVP candidates, but Lamar Jackson is certainly in that conversation.
Yep.
I know it's not the most conventional way that he's winning football games, but boy, I think he's the most entertaining player in the NFL without a doubt. Because anytime he drops back to pass, I feel as if he can either let it rip for a deep score or he can just tuck that sucker himself and take off at any given moment.
Yep.
That's how special this guy is with the football in his hands. It's something where I mean, people have made a lot of comparisons with Kyler Murray and Michael Vick. I think Lamar Jackson screams Michael Vick way more than Kyler Murray does because he looks like he's the fastest player on the football field sometimes.
And he is actually most of the time.
Right.
I mean, he gets outside the tackles. He's something to watch, man. And again, I think what the special thing that people need to realize about Lamar Jackson is that he actually wants to throw the football. And, and not to say that, Michael Vick didn't at times. I mean, we know about Michael Vick and how his career was, but he was very talented throwing the football as well. But I think, again, in Lamar Jackson is that you see his commitment to being a pocket quarterback as well, not only being able to make moves outside of it and getting out on the run, but he can do everything on the football field, Derek. He really can, and he just continues to prove that week in and week out.
His passing from within the pocket in the confines of the offense in concepts, 5, 3, or 7-step drops are night and day compared to where he was as a rookie, where basically the playbook consisted of what felt like 10 plays. And 5 of them were option reads, right, left. And that was pretty much it for last year. They did what they could. And Lamar Jackson just doing that made them a playoff team.
Yes.
This year you've seen him grow in leaps and bounds. And from what I've seen as a passer, I mean, yes, does he still have some ways to go as a passer? Absolutely. It's almost like He's a pitcher that has some of the best stuff in all of Major League Baseball. He just uses the wrong type of pitches in certain situations when throwing the football. Sometimes when you need a fastball, he'll throw a slider for some damn reason. Like, he just doesn't know where to go to the well in specific situations, but he's learning. And good God almighty, if he perfects that aspect of his game, then the rest of the league is put on notice, and they are in deep-ish. I'm going to call it ish. That's it. If he reaches his ceiling, then look out. The rest of the league is in freaking trouble.
Absolutely.
So, of course, there's some folks joining in. Uncle Pete, here we go with the go route. Sorry about missing us last week. Actually, you didn't miss us last week.
No.
We did not record last week. That is on me.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us again. Lisa, hello. Being Dried Ocean, real quick. Are the Chargers the most disappointing team of the 2019 season?
Well, I think they're going to play each other next week. We're talking about two disappointing teams.
Right.
The Chargers visit the Chicago Bears at home this week, and can I answer that question then? But I think I think up until this point, you probably would have to say yeah. And this is something that I talk about on my radio show, Second City Sports, every Thursday, 12 to 2 p.m. ChicagolandSportsRadio.com. Shameless plug there.
Woo!
We talked about this during the preseason, Tater. I think what the Chargers let happen to them is the distraction of the Melvin Gordon situation get a little too deep in their heads. They were a team that already, in my opinion, had a short window to win. I think their golden opportunity to win was last year. They couldn't do it on the road in New England, which they historically have troubles playing in anyway, but they couldn't do it there. And I think with the Melvin Gordon situation, them not having him in camp, having him hold out, that situation not getting resolved, I think it ended up being a real distraction for the San Diego Chargers. And to make the long story short, they've got to be right there as one of the most disappointing teams in the league. They've got them back, but they still don't look like that team that can really challenge anybody at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna point the finger a little bit at Philip Rivers. I love Philip Rivers. I love his P-Rib. That guy slings the ball all over the yard, and really he's the main reason for the last decade, with the exception of a few spots here and there where they had a roster that actually complimented him and gave them a legitimate chance to make some noise in the AFC. But Philip Rivers, I think, has played very bad this season.
Yeah.
I mean, they've gotten in their own way a couple of times in Detroit. I was at that game, and they had a couple of occasions where they could have gone up by a score or two scores, had a couple touchdowns called back, a couple fumbles on the 1 yard line. I mean, that cost them a touchdown against the Detroit Lions. Of course, we saw how the game against the Tennessee Titans finished this past week, where it looked like Eckler scored. It got called back. Looked like Gordon scored. Got called back. Then he tries to score again from the 1 yard line, less than a minute left. It's go ahead touchdown, and he fumbles the ball away.
Yep.
Disappointing. And then, of course, they fell behind 21-0 at home against Pittsburgh Steelers and a third string quarterback.
Yeah.
So for me, the Los Angeles Chargers were a team that went 12-4 last year and damn near secured a bye in the AFC with Patrick Mahomes playing out of his mind. Yep. So hell yeah, they are right there with the Chicago Bears as one of the most disappointing teams in the NFL. They're just one of the biggest surprises because Philip Rivers is turning the football over.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect from Mitchell Trubisky. I thought I could take it to the bank that P-Rib was going to be playing at a high level with a talented roster on both sides of the football. And right now, they're just not.
No, they're not. They look lost. And again, I hate to say this, but is Father Time, starting to creep up on Rivers a little bit? Like you said, he is not playing at the usual Philip Rivers level. And for me, I think that's the saddest part about it, because he's been such a leader there in that Chargers franchise for the better part of almost 15 years at this point. And he's been such a steady hand there. Certainly fiery, certainly competitive, a bit polarizing is Philip Rivers, but a guy that like you said, Tater, you can always count on behind center, that was always going to deliver that football wherever it needed to be. And again, it's certainly disappointing that the Chargers are 2-5 at this point.
Yeah, they got a lot of talent for a team that is 2-5 through the first 7 weeks. It feels like they could or should be 4-3, but it is what it is. I mean, you
At
are
least
what
you're
the record says you are. And right now, they are not a good football team, despite having a boatload of talent on both sides of the football. So, game balls for week 7. I'll let you go ahead and hand yours out.
Yeah, all right. You know what? So let's start for me. Again, I definitely, as much as I hate to do this,
I know where you're going.
You know where I'm going, man. I've got to give a big old game ball to Aaron Rodgers. Listen, 6 total touchdowns, 429 yards through the air, carved up that Oakland Raiders defense. Without Devontae Adams, he did get Valdez-Scantling back, and that Aaron Rodgers. I mean, when they're fully healthy, just look out. Just look out, because they're pretty unstoppable at this point, offensively wise, especially with Jones in there in the backfield doing his thing as well. But definitely got to give the game ball to Aaron Rodgers with the breakout performance. And of course, it helped me fantasy-wise. But, I mean, big game ball going to Aaron Rodgers. He's number 1 on my list.
Yeah, I mean, I want to put this in perspective a little bit, because Aaron Rodgers played – I mean, he did – something that only 2 other players prior to him have ever done in an NFL football game, which is throw for over 400 yards, 5 touchdown passes, and add 1 on the ground. So absolutely all world. He has to get a game ball. I don't see how logically you can't give that man a game ball for how he played. It was against the Oakland Raiders. Granted, he didn't have Devontae Adams, but Aaron Rodgers certainly – with the Packers are 6-1, and you could say what you want about the game against the Detroit Lions. I actually thought that they should have lost that football game.
Right.
They got lucky. They got damn lucky in that game. But you know what? Rodgers still made a hell of a throw to Allen Lazard, and they were already in field goal range for the go-ahead field goal when they threw that second phantom illegal hands to the face call. That just allowed them to bleed the clock all the way down.
Right.
And so to where the Detroit Lions didn't even get a chance to respond. But the point being is Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur, if they can start getting on the same page, and boy, did it look like they were on the same page, and Rodgers is starting to get very comfortable in this system, the Packers are certainly a contender in the NFC right now.
Yep.
And you got to tip my hat to them playing some damn good football and finding ways to win despite not having who I think is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, agreed. And again, once they get Adams back, it's going to be scary for the rest of the league. That's for sure. Who do you got? What do you got? Game ball wise.
I'm giving it Kirk Cousins. Captain Kirk, beam me up, Scotty. Look, second straight game, over 330 yards through the air, 4 touchdown passes, and he did most of this without Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
So, and really, I was throwing all kinds of shade at this man after a really rough start to the football season, and I got to give him credit, even though he's played against 2 of the worst secondaries to be able to have some of these performances against. Look, he's still throwing the ball over the yard. It seems as if he's starting to calm down, trust his wide receivers, and sling it all over the yard. This is why you paid that man as much money as you did, all that guaranteed money, to come in with a roster that seems like it's Super Bowl ready right now, contender in the NFC, and Cousins looks like the guy that we originally thought that he might be. I got to tip my hat to Kirk Cousins after all of the media critiquing that he was getting over the beginning of the season.
Yeah. Actually, Kirk Cousins was one of my top takeaways for the week, but that's absolutely, listen, that's a great call in giving him a game ball. I think they may have found his game in Minnesota, but like you said, Tater, 2 of the not so good secondaries in the league.
Correct.
So let's put it in a bit of perspective. But listen, on the road, divisional matchup, to go out there and perform the way that he did, you got to tip your hat to him. And again, no Adam Thielen, like you mentioned, and Dalvin Cook. I mean, he's the real deal, man. And if they can play that type of football every week, boy, the Vikings are scary.
Dude, he's the head chef of the Vikings rushing game is Dalvin Cook, and he is just serving up tutties and 100-yard games like it's no one's business this season. That offensive line looks like a completely different unit than last year to this year, and they've certainly committed to a healthy Dalvin Cook giving him the football, and it's paying dividends. So big hat tip to him. Also, one more guy I got to bring up. You scored 4 touchdowns as a wide receiver. Marvin Jones. I got to give him a game ball. I mean, in a losing effort, that man did his thing against Xavier Rhodes or who else was ever trying to lock him down. They had no success. That man was money in the red zone this week against a pretty damn good Vikings defense.
Yeah, I mean that chemistry between him and Matt Stafford, it's really starting to blossom. A guy that I don't know what your opinion of Marvin Jones is, but for me, a wide receiver that had a world of potential, but up to this point had not really seen it yet, right? I mean, I think he's been maybe fifth or sixth year in the league now. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to check some of his numbers there, but certainly a veteran at this point and a guy that you were sort of waiting on to have a breakout season. And up to this point, it's certainly been the case in Detroit. Definitely got to give a game ball to Marvin Jones. I've got one more guy as well to go back to some running backs, but I'm going to Arizona on the road. Chase Edmonds, and you're saying who? Chase Edmonds, because I'm saying who? Chase Edmonds. I mean, the guy rushed for 3 touchdowns, 126 yards in a winning effort on the road. Granted, it was against the Giants, but to have that performance, with David Johnson, I mean, he just can't stay healthy. But I mean, to have a guy and a backup in Chase Edmonds go out and perform the way he did when we all thought it was going to be the other running back, Saquon Barkley, having a breakout day. Got to give a really big game ball to Chase Edmonds of the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, so for me, I didn't say who. I said woo. Like,
yeah, I know. I was saying who.
No, a lot of people would be going and saying who. But no, Chase Edmonds was absolutely unstoppable in this game. It wasn't just that it was well blocked, because there were some issues with that Giants rush defense, but Chase Edmonds was making plays. He was breaking tackles. He was unstoppable. And he was the reason why the Arizona Cardinals have now won 3 straight football games.
Yep.
And by the way, one other, observation that I'm starting to raise an eyebrow to, I feel like some folks maybe in New York in the media may have crowned Daniel Jones just a bit too quick. I know that was a rainy game, though, in New York. So, I mean, it was a turnover. It had the recipe for turnovers for a rookie quarterback.
Wait, so you're saying the New York media
overreacted?
Yeah, the New York media overhyped the guy. Is that what you're saying, Derek? Oh,
yeah.
Shocking.
My bad. Duh. Whoopsie. So, look, we got a couple other folks on YouTube and Facebook. Of course, Chris Cox saying, what up? What's up, man? I think Connor has a very nice game this week. Also tonight, crushing in the NBA. By the way, the NBA opening game, I don't know if you caught any of it last night against LeBron versus Kawhi, Lakers, Clippers. You might have heard something that there was a game going on.
Yeah, you might have.
Today. Interesting game. I mean, I know we don't want to talk about the NBA on this show, but it was an interesting game last night. It was a great one.
Well, listen, I didn't get to catch it, honestly. But I mean, from what I saw and read from it, I first of all, I thought that the Clippers would win the game outright anyway. I think the title goes through the Staples Center, and I don't think it goes through the Lakers, although they'll be right there. But I think Kawhi Leonard has once again told the world that he's the best player on the planet right now, and he showed it with 30 points. And the Lakers, they'll be fine. They've got Anthony Davis. They got LeBron James. But, man, you got to love what the Clippers are doing right now.
Whew, absolutely. So, Burt Boy 878, thoughts on the Saints? We already kind of talked about the Saints a little bit earlier in this one. Are they the number 2 team behind New England? You're going to have to find that out. Just hang on with us. We got some power rankings coming later in the show. Uncle Pete, love this show. You guys are awesome. Hey, we love you too. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for the love. 2 visions. Pick one for this week. I know this is more of a fantasy football question, but we'll hit it right before we jump into MVP watches. 2 visions. Pick one for week 8. Marvin Jones, Deontay Johnson, Odell Beckham Jr., or A.J. Brown. Kind of interesting. I got to take a look at the matchups.
Right, me too.
But Odell Beckham Jr., if my memory serves me correct, he's going up against that New England secondary that, by the way, they have more interceptions than the bottom 6 teams in the NFL combined through the first 7 weeks of the season.
Yeah. They got a game ball from me this week too, Derek. I know we're trying to move it along here, but they were one of my game balls as well. Going on the road and shutting out the Jets. I thought that would be a much closer game. I got to be honest with you. But man, that defense of the New England Patriots, it's at this point the best that Bill Belichick has ever had, and
it's up there.
You know, when we talk about, and sorry to bring this back to Chicago, but this just goes back to a rant that I had just a few days ago.
Ran away, my friend, ran away.
You're talking about a team that sustains success by adapting year to year and play to play and game to game, not resting on the laurels of last year, and again being able to adjust your personnel and your personalities on that team on a week-to-week basis. that goes back to your leadership and coaching and quarterback. And there's just no wonder why the Patriots continue to be successful, no matter what your personal feelings are about that team. I know a lot of people say they're cheaters and blah, 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 blah. But what you continue to see is that they're the gold standard when it comes to being a successful NFL franchise year in and year out.
100%. I mean, there's really, their record speaks for itself. Their defense speaks for itself. And I know, and I'm going to have a little bit to say about this later when it comes to our power rankings. I know that they haven't played a ton of talented teams this season thus far, but you can only beat the people that are in front of you. And they've really only had one close game to really speak of this entire season with the Buffalo Bills on the road against a team that is 5-1 through the first 7 weeks of the season. They had a bye. So I can't knock a team for playing and beating who they have to play. I mean, that's just the reality of this. So, and you hit the nail on the head. When it comes to being able to get the most out of whatever your personnel is, no matter what injuries hit you in a year, no matter what situation hits you in a year, like Rob Gronkowski retiring this offseason, like no matter what happens, this team continues to be competitive year in, year out, week in, week out, play in, play out. Doesn't matter. Bill Belichick has them ready to play every single damn week, and it's a testament because he's been doing it for the last 2 decades.
Yep.
So, speaking of which, MVP watch.
Yeah.
Who do you got?
So, number one, we talked about him already. I think for me, at this point, it's Lamar Jackson. I'm sorry. I was super impressed by that performance on the road, man. I really was. And again, he didn't have the greatest game passing-wise, right? But he made the plays through the air when he needed to make the plays through the air. And when you're a highlight reel with your legs on the ground, going on the road to Seattle, playing against that team that was also red hot and another opposing quarterback playing well, for me this week, Lamar Jackson is number one. Number two, of course, he drops down a little bit, but I've still got Russell Wilson as my number 2 MVP quarterback at this point. Again, that big mistake there with that interception return for a touchdown last week, but I think the Ravens are pretty doggone good. I still think Seattle's pretty doggone good. And I've got Russell Wilson as my number 2 spot. To round out the top 3 and probably should be 2, I've got to put Aaron Rodgers there at this point. I mean, listen, I think they're starting to take off offensively, and it looks like Devontae Adams may be back, and he's making it happen. He's continuing to show the world why he's probably the best quarterback overall in the game.
So I'm not going to go ahead and say that I pretty much we have the same 3 candidates. I mean, with Patrick Mahomes getting hurt, that automatically eliminates him from the MVP conversation for me right now. And by the way, 2 visions. I forgot to answer the question that you asked. I did say, I'm not going with Odell Beckham Jr. against that New England Patriots team. I'm going to go with Marvin Jones. That guy had a monster week last week. And Deontay Johnson and A.J. Brown are nice players in their own rights, but they're rookie wide receivers that are very hard to predict their weekly involvement. So I'm going to go with Marvin Jones while the Cleveland Browns still try to figure out their offense. So when it comes to my MVP list, though, it is going to be still Russell Wilson at the top of my list. I know that he lost this week, and I know that the Ravens kind of put it on him and everything of that nature, but I am going to go with Russell Wilson. I still think that if you remove Russell Wilson from that football team, that they are in serious trouble. And I know that he made a couple crucial mistakes, and it was not a Russell Wilson-like type performance that I've become accustomed to this season, but I still think Russell Wilson is the most important player to his football team. But at number 2, I do have Lamar Action Jackson. How do you like your ribs? Anyway, opposing defenses. Man, look, this man is on pace to destroy the single-season rushing record by a quarterback in the NFL, and for good reason. This offense caters perfectly to what it does well. They can hit you with that option. They can hit you with a little like play action, and you have to respect that play action. Every single linebacker or safety that's playing in the box has to freeze for a split second, and that just opens up so many damn passing lanes. And this year, Lamar Jackson's finding them. So for me, it is Lamar Jackson at number 2, and you can certainly make a hell of a case for him at number 1. At number 3, I've got Aaron Rodgers. I know. Here's the thing: I had such a hard time going Rodgers over Deshaun Watson.
Right. Me too.
I still believe that Deshaun Watson is having a very good year, even though I know that he lost this last week, but it was against a good Colts football team. And Rodgers, like, he should have lost that football game against the Detroit Lions. Now, he carved up the Oakland Raiders. Like, John Gruden's got to be going over there, man. Spider too wide banana, man. What the hell happened here? Aaron Rodgers had a great week. And certainly his team is 6-1. The Houston Texans are 4-3. Mm-hmm. So for that, if they're playing even, then I'm going to probably give the tip of the hat to the team that has a better record, and they're in a tougher division. That NFC North is just stacked.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And don't be deceived by the Lions' record.
No,
the Lions have been competitive in every single football game this season.
I'm glad you brought up the Lions real quick, because you're talking about what probably the most competitive division in football right now. And the Lions are probably 3 or 4 plays away from almost being undefeated themselves.
Exactly. I mean, they really should have. They really kind of collapsed against Arizona in week 1 for that, bogus tie. And of course, everybody else will say, well, wait, Stafford almost threw an interception with like time running out in field goal range that could have lost him that game. Okay, that's fine. But they also gave up a 18-point lead in the fourth quarter. So they really should have won that football game. Then you also look at the Packers game. I think they got robbed of a win there. Yep. And then you look at the Kansas City Chiefs. It took every bit of Patrick Mahomes being freaking Superman on the last drive of the game to give them the go-ahead touchdown to win. So, and that was before Mahomes was really hurt. He still looked pretty damn healthy to me in that game. So for me, the Detroit Lions are a tough luck 2-3-1 on the season.
Yep, agree.
So, we got another little shout out here. BG, big fan here, fellas. Free agent money. He's asking, should I be worried that I'm not being active enough on the waiver wire? 6-1 in both leagues. Just feel like I'm missing out. Look, if you're bragging that you're 6-1 in your own league, I mean, go ahead. I mean, please keep my comment section clear of any sort of messing around in my comment section to your own roster. But point is, no, you should not feel bad. But if you see somebody that can add value to your team or even take away from one of your opposing teams, then go ahead and drop that free agent money on a free agent player that you feel makes your team a little bit better.
Yeah, just don't make moves to make moves, though. I mean, you're freaking 6-1, all right? I'm 4-3 over here. I mean, come on now.
Yeah, I'm feeling good to be 4-3, much less.
Exactly.
But hey, tip of the hat, BG. Love your support, brother. Love your support. So now we got power rankings.
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, man, I feel like this is one of the most. I feel like I say this every time, but this is one of the most interesting weeks to try to determine a top 5. Given that we had a couple of weak teams off, a couple teams that really surprised. Like, what do you got for your top 5?
All right. So for me, I'm starting off at the bottom. I'm starting off with number 5. Okay. And you made this point just a few minutes ago about the Patriots with just beating who they play, right? Well, I'm going to use that point to talk about the Buffalo Bills coming in at number 5. They're 5-1. Again, I said this a couple of weeks ago. They're probably a Josh Allen concussion, maybe from being undefeated themselves against the Patriots a few weeks back. I know they played the Dolphins last week, but listen, you can only play and beat who's on your schedule, right? And up to this point, they've done that, again, with the exception of New England. I got to keep Buffalo in my top 5. They come in there. At number 4, listen, I'm going to say this is probably a bit of a surprise. Well, no, it really isn't. I'm going to say the San Francisco 49ers. They're coming in at number 4 for me. They're undefeated. That was a sloppy game in Washington against that team there. We know how much in shambles that team is. We'll see what happens there. They fired their coach. We'll see what happens to them in their future. But, they've got no real offense to speak of. But listen, their defense is playing great. To pitch a shutout on the road is still not an easy task. So I've got the Niners coming in at 4 still. Some people may have them higher on in their power rankings board, but I still got them at number 4. At number 3 for me, it's the New Orleans Saints. Again, we talked about them earlier on. If you would have told me that they would have gone undefeated in Drew Brees' absence, I would have told you were smoking some good stuff. And guess what? It looks like Drew Brees is back now. So they're getting healthy. I'm not sure about the status of Alvin Kamara, although I would have to guess that he would probably be back next week. I haven't heard anything on that yet, though. But I think they're one of the best teams in the NFC, which leads me to number 2, which is the Green Bay Packers, of course, 6-1, doing what they did against the Oakland Raiders. Again, when Devontae Adams gets back, that offense is going to take off, and Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur look like they're on the same page now. So for all the people that said that Matt LaFleur was holding, Aaron Rodgers back or that they didn't get along, well, it looks like they're getting along right now, Tater. So I've got Green Bay coming in at number 2. And, of course, rounding out the top 5 at number 1 is the New England Patriots. I mean, they're undefeated. They're not only beating on not good teams, they're dominating not good teams, okay? So that's the point about all this. I know Josh Gordon just went on IR. I mean, that's unfortunate, but it wasn't like he was having the best of year anyway. He was just another option for Tom Brady, and really wasn't all that productive to really describe it. So, but I've got the Patriots at number 1 until they lose, and probably not if they lose. But the Patriots are just looking pretty stout right now.
Yeah, they look stout against bad football teams.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and our top 5s are pretty similar, but there are some changes in the order around those. At number 5, I'm going to put the Kansas City Chiefs, and I know that they don't have the all-world Patrick Mahomes to save them. Like he's not the trump card that he is. So I know he's going to miss somewhere between 3 to 5 weeks, and we're going to find out a little bit more about this football team over the next 3 to 5 weeks to see exactly how many of the deficiencies that Mahomes covers up for this team. So we'll see. But right now, they're still one of the best and most talented football teams, especially on the offensive side of the football in the NFL. Number 4, I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers. We have them in the same exact spot. Look, they're the only undefeated team in the NFC, but I do not trust Jimmy Garoppolo.
Wait. So I did not mention this, but a big key is, and I don't know if you were going to go here, Derek Tate, but they've got Emmanuel Sanders now. And I know you just said that you don't trust Jimmy Garoppolo, but I believe a big part of that was because their wide receiving core is nothing to sneeze at whatsoever. And I think Emmanuel Sanders was rotting away in Denver. I think this is a situation where he's coming to a competitive team. I think you're going to see the best that you've seen Emmanuel Sanders in maybe 2 or 3 seasons. And I think you may want to start to trust Jimmy Garoppolo in a couple of weeks. But, of course, they got to play the games on the field. It remains to be seen.
I got to see him make throws that don't make me cringe when he throws into bad situations.
Agree.
I am not being a hater on Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that you don't win 6 football games in a row in the NFL. In fact, even dating back to some of his time as a starter when the Niners originally traded for him, and he started a couple games when Tom Brady was on the shelf due to suspension back in, I think it was 2016 or 2017. My apologies if I don't have the correct year. But the point is, Garoppolo's not a scrub, but I just I don't trust him. And that's why I have him at 4, and that's exactly why I have the Green Bay Packers at 3, because I trust Aaron Rodgers. And you say what you will about Aaron Rodgers. Certainly over the last couple seasons, I think he's been overhyped. But this season, with a roster around him and a coaching staff that seems to be getting the most out of the players and the talent that they have, Rodgers being able to at times be a game manager, or he can still torch you like we're used to Aaron Rodgers being able to do, like he did against the Oakland Raiders this past week. The Green Bay Packers can beat you in a multitude of ways, which you haven't been able to say that about the Green Bay Packers in a long time.
Yep.
Beat you playing small ball, playing defense. They can run the football with Aaron Jones and even sprinkle in Jamal Williams. And, of course, they have your boy Aaron Rodgers that can always do his thing. So I have them at 3. And at number 2, I've got the New England Patriots. I've got the New England Patriots. So Interesting being, look, it's hard for me to sit here and talk smack about the New England Patriots. Anybody that, probably heard me say that went, what? Get the hell out of here. I'm going to tell you to get the hell out of here, because who the hell have they beaten so far this year? They've beat up on the Jets twice. They beat them with Sam Darnold once, and one time without Sam Darnold. They beat the Miami Dolphins. They beat the Buffalo Bills, who didn't even have Josh Allen to finish the damn football game. I don't think Ben Roethlisberger was heading into this season healthy, yet they did smack the Pittsburgh Steelers on national television in week 1. Totally understand that they've beaten everybody that's been in front of them so far this season.
Yep.
And the Washington Redskins. Oh, by the way, my bad. I forgot another one football team that's on their win resume right now.
Right.
But the reason why I have the New Orleans Saints at number 1 is because they are 5-0 without an MVP caliber quarterback in their own right in Drew Brees. They just went on the road and beat up and dropped 36 points on one of the best defenses in the NFL. I know that the Bears are out of sorts right now. I understand that they don't have Akeem Hicks. But they are – you talk about finding ways to win football games.
Yeah.
They've beaten the Seahawks, who have been in the power rankings before. They have beaten the Chicago Bears, who are one of the best – I think have one of the most talented rosters in the NFL.
Great.
What you want about their quarterback, but their defense is all world. And they've beaten them. They beat the Dallas Cowboys, who are a very good football team. So you're talking to me about the quality of wins that the Saints have up to this point. The only team they lost to was in the game they lost Drew Brees against the defending NFC champion Los Angeles Rams. So for me, with the resume I'm presented right now and the fact that this team is going to get back Drew Brees, they sit atop my current power rankings.
Hey, listen, you get no argument there for me, Tater. But I think I just have to take into account that we're talking about the defending champs in the New England Patriots. And again, they're undefeated, but we know who they've not played, right? And those aren't really good teams. But I think the fact that they're dominating those bad teams, I think is still something that you have to consider. They've outscored the Jets 63-14 this year. Again, we're talking about the Jets. But 63-14, Tater. I mean, come on, that's domination.
Oh, no. It's flat domination, 100%. And look, the New England Patriots still look fantastic especially their defense looks like it's taken not only a step up, but a significant step up from last year. And they did a hell of a job on Mahomes at Arrowhead in the first half of last year's AFC Championship game. And they absolutely stifled the Los Angeles Rams, who were one of the highest scoring, if not the highest scoring team in all of football last year in the Super Bowl on the biggest stage. So, yes, the Patriots are a force to be reckoned with. I cannot understand. I mean, I can't fathom how the Saints have not lost a football game since they lost Drew Brees. That, to me, is just – it's mind-blowing. And they've beaten a slew of good football teams. Not average teams, good football teams during that span. So for that reason, I've got the New Orleans Saints at the top of my power rankings. But, hey, go ahead. If you're tuning into the Go Route for the very first time, whether it be on YouTube or listening to us on however you digest your podcast, go ahead and sound off in the comments. Punch the subscribe button, also the like button. Anything that you guys have ever listened to or like about the show, go ahead and let us know in a review. We really appreciate any and all the support. We're going to be coming at you every single week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Wednesday is the Go Route. Anything to sign off with there, Jay?
Well, no, again, we've just got an amazing week of football coming up. You know, I've just really quick going over some games here. You've got Cardinals and Saints. I think that's going to be a really interesting one coming up this week. And you've got Panthers and Niners. I mean, you've got that coming up this week as well. Right. You've got Browns and Patriots coming off of the bye week, Raiders and Texans. And, of course, you've got the Chiefs and the Packers coming up, even though it's going to be now without Patrick Mahomes. Right. So you've got some interesting matchups coming up this week. You know, nothing incredibly great, but it's still some football to come up with. And, again, here in Chicago, nothing cures what ails you like a win. So we'll see what happens, and we'll certainly digest it all next week here on the Go Route.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other games that really, to me, stands out is a Philadelphia team that needs a win that's going to be going up against a Buffalo Bills team that's surprisingly 5-1 through the first 7 weeks of the NFL season. So also you have the Cardinals, who have won 3 straight, going up against the New Orleans Saints, who are red hot, winning 5 straight with Teddy Bridgewater as their starter. So definitely some, like you said, no like 6-1 versus 7-0 type matchups or anything of that nature. But we are going to have some interesting football games to see who can continue whatever their momentum is or get things turned around as we're at the midpoint of the NFL season.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly gone by way too fast. Like you said, we're already pretty much at the midway point here. It just speaks to how much we love football here and how much it really is exciting for us. So again, got another great week of some action coming up.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for everybody that joined in, gave us some love or some questions here on the Go Route in the comment section. Again, appreciate it. And of course, Uncle Pete hitting us with the Go Route is ranked number 1.
Oh man, thanks Uncle Pete.
I'm at the top of his power rankings. I'll take it for the week.
Absolutely.
Until next time, for Jay, I'm Derek Tate, and later, says the Tater.
See ya.